What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Jason the Overwhelmed Gamer here. Today we're kicking off a brand new series where I spend 20-30 minutes or so with a retro game and decide whether it's worth playing or not, or whether it's better left in the past. And for the first episode, we're diving into a game that is definitely a bit different. We're looking at Orb 3D for the NES. It isn't your typical NES game. It's kind of a puzzle action hybrid with a unique 3D perspective, which I give them credit for. It's pretty ambitious for its time. But does that ambition translate to a fun experience? Let's jump in and find out. So Orb 3D puts you in control of a bouncing ball or orb, obviously, and your goal is to clear these various 3D puzzles. The first thing that hit me was how the game actually tries to simulate 3D on the NES, which is no small feat for an 8-bit console. The visuals were really interesting for this time. It tries to give you a sense of depth, but the controls are, I don't know, they're just kind of clunky. The orb bounces back and forth and you have to move it up and down, almost kind of like Pong. My first thought, though, was how do I even control the thing? As I played through the first few puzzles, I started to understand what Orb 3D was really about, kind of. You're using the orb to solve puzzles, bounce it off of walls, and complete the objectives. The further you go, the more complex and tricky the levels get. In fact, the levels, as you progress, started to make less and less sense, to be honest. The controls can be super brutal at times, though. Sometimes you'll just bounce a little bit too far or not enough. Suddenly you're like scrambling trying to fix it. It's one of those games where precision really matters, but I feel like the controls aren't always on your side. The puzzles themselves are kind of clever. They range from bouncing the orb in a specific pattern to avoiding obstacles. And while there were times where I was having fun with this, it also gets repetitive pretty quick. Every puzzle is a variation of the same basic mechanic. Alright, so after 30 minutes with Orb 3D, let's break it down. First, let's talk about the pros. The attempt at 3D on the NES is actually kind of impressive for the time. You can tell they were trying something new, which I super appreciate. The puzzles do offer kind of a unique experience, and if you like games that challenge your reflexes, this one might actually appeal to you. But then there's the downside. The controls are frustrating. Trying to get that orb to bounce exactly where you want can be a real pain. And there's also some kind of boss battle that comes through where you have to try and get the orb directly in its eyes, and that can be super frustrating, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, so you don't really know what to do. It's a complete guessing game. And honestly, after about 30 minutes, I felt like I'd seen everything the game had to offer. So is Orb 3D worth playing all the way through? My verdict is probably not. The gameplay does have some unique ideas, and if you're a fan of like quirky experimental NES games, you might want to give this one a try, but for most people, the clunky controls and the repetitive gameplay will wear you thin pretty quickly. It is fun for a short time just trying to figure things out, but I wouldn't recommend sticking this one out to the end. So this one is probably going to just sit on the shelf as a collection piece. Let me know in the comments below whether you've played Orb 3D or if you agree with what I've had to say about it. And don't forget, if you like what we're doing here, like, subscribe, the bell, all the fun YouTube stuff. That's it for this one, and we will see you in the next video. Late.